You know her name, you know her verses. For over a decade, Nicki Minaj has worn the crown as the undisputed queen of rap. She shattered glass ceilings in a heavily male-dominated hip-hop industry, broke endless chart records, and paved the way for an entire generation of female artists. But if you look at her social media timeline and her public appearances today, you will see a completely different person than the colorful, boundary-pushing artist we met back in 2010. The woman who once stood as a global icon for the marginalized is now fighting a very different war. This is not just a story about music or chart numbers. This is the dark truth about Nicki Minaj and how she built her massive empire on the backs of queer culture and progressive ideals, only to turn around and align herself with the exact political forces that want to tear those communities down. To understand the sheer scale of this transformation, we have to go back to the Pink Friday era. When Nicki Minaj first exploded onto the mainstream scene, she did not just cater to the traditional rap audience. She built a universe. She embraced camp aesthetics, outrageous costumes, neon wigs, and a theatrical style that was heavily inspired by drag queens and ballroom culture. She even created a famous alter ego named Roman Zelensky, whom she explicitly described to the press as an eccentric, outspoken gay boy from London. Through Roman, Nicki channeled a wild, unapologetic energy that resonated deeply with the LGBTQ community. Her fanbase, known as the Barbs, quickly became one of the most powerful forces on the internet, and a massive portion of that fanbase was made up of queer youth and marginalized kids who felt like outsiders in their own lives. Nicki told them to be weird, to be loud, and to love themselves. She used the language of female empowerment and progressive inclusivity to build a glittering pink fortress. She was the weird girl who won, and her fans worshipped her for it. She utilized what we now call woke culture to establish herself as an untouchable progressive icon. But something shifted behind the scenes. The artist who once championed the outcasts slowly began to change her tune. The first major, undeniable crack in the facade appeared during the global pandemic. Nicki sent an absolute shockwave through the internet with a single tweet about her cousin in Trinidad, claiming a friend had suffered from swollen testicles after receiving the vaccine. The medical community and government officials debunked the claim immediately, but the damage was done. The progressive internet, which had always defended her, was suddenly criticizing her, and who rushed to her defense? Right-wing political commentators like Tucker Carlson. Instead of backing down or apologizing for spreading misinformation, Nicki leaned into the applause of the conservative right. She realized something very dangerous in that moment. She realized that the conservative media, a group that had spent years criticizing rap music and tearing down women of color, was suddenly willing to act as her personal shield as long as she fought against the so-called woke mob. This shift was not just about politics, it was about personal protection and ego. When Nicki faced massive, undeniable public backlash for marrying Kenneth Petty, a registered sex offender, the internet turned on her. When reports surfaced that she allegedly tried to intimidate his victim, the progressive culture that once celebrated her demanded accountability, and Nicki absolutely hated that. The very people who built her up were now asking her to take responsibility for the dark reality of her personal life. Instead of taking accountability, she went to war. She started using conservative talking points to deflect all criticism. She began calling out cancel culture, framing herself as the ultimate victim of a woke agenda that was simply trying to silence a powerful, independent black woman. This all came to a boiling point during her incredibly messy and public feud with Megan Thee Stallion. When Megan released a song with a subtle jab at registered sex offenders, Nicki completely lost control. She went on a chaotic social media tirade and aligned herself with figures like Ben Shapiro, bringing the ultimate conservative voice into a rap beef just to score points on the Billboard charts. But the absolute point of no return, the moment that truly cemented her terrifying pivot, happened in December 2025, in a move that left the world absolutely speechless. Nicki Minaj made a surprise appearance at AmericaFest in Phoenix, Arizona. This was not a music festival, it was a summit hosted by Turning Point USA, the powerful conservative youth organization. Nicki sat on stage for an interview with Erica Kirk, the widow of the late conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The woman who once built her career on LGBTQ aesthetics was now sitting at a right-wing political convention, openly praising Donald Trump and calling him a handsome, dashing president who gives people hope. She even praised Vice President J.D. Vance, calling him an amazing role model and referring to him as an assassin. This created a massively awkward moment in the room, considering Charlie Kirk had recently been fatally shot. If you thought it could not get any worse, it did. On that very stage, surrounded by conservative activists, Nicki read aloud her own social media posts criticizing California Governor Gavin Newsom and making derogatory, transphobic comments about transgender youth. She spoke about religious persecution and Christian nationalism, completely abandoning the marginalized fans who had supported her for over a decade. The truth about Nicki Minaj is a tragic story of survival, massive ego, and ultimate alienation. She built a glittering empire using the aesthetics, the loyalty, and the language of the queer community. She used the concept of empowerment as a ladder to climb to the very top of the music industry. But the moment that same community asked her to look in the mirror and take accountability for her personal choices, she abandoned them. She traded her loyal, colorful fan base for the applause of political commentators who do not even respect her legacy. Nicki Minaj proved that for some celebrities, empowerment is not a core belief, it is just a highly effective marketing tool. And she proved that loyalty only lasts until it is no longer profitable. The queen of rap is still sitting on her throne, but the kingdom she rules today is completely unrecognizable from the one she built.